Yes, I know I'm severely late on the news about the Nintendo Switch 2 being released, but nobody will care because I highly doubt this video will reach out to many people anyways. So, the Nintendo Switch 2. It happened. 4K, HDR, 1080p 120Hz, magnets. Oh boy, I've got some thoughts about it, and I totally have nothing against it. Totally nothing. $80 would be $80. No way in hell makes this game $80. Well, here goes nothing. Before we dive into the juicy stuff, I want to talk about the hardware first. So let's turn the clock a bit to 2024 when the Nintendo Switch 2 still wasn't a thing yet. There were leaks suggesting that the Nintendo Switch 2 will feature, obviously, a faster ARM-based processor from NVIDIA with a GPU that is based on the Ampere architecture, which can be found on NVIDIA's RTX 30 series GPUs, paired with 12 gigs of RAM. Fast forward to now, the specifics are still not yet fully revealed, but with the capabilities shown in the Direct, the leaks may be true, though we still need to wait for a teardown for the real specs and the processor die to be revealed to the public. But for now, I think we can assume that the performance will be on par to, let's say, half an RTX 3070, or worst case scenario, the 3050, which is still a very big improvement over the first gen Nintendo Switch, which has a GPU based on the Maxwell architecture. The Switch 2 will feature 256GB of internal storage, which is an alright amount. You can probably store like 5 to 6 games, considering if each game costs 35GB of storage, and it can be expanded with a microSD card, but with an asterisk, because it will use the microSD Express standard, which is completely different compared to a regular microSD. I won't go into much detail on this, but my research says that the microSD Express standard connects through the PCIe interface, which enables significantly lower latency and faster theoretical read and write speeds, compared to the regular UHS-2 interface which microSD uses. And I think this is done so that Nintendo can be sure that games will load faster with their better read-on-demand performance. I mean, hey, you can't blame them. High-resolution textures are significantly bigger and therefore needs a faster read speed. And with this standard in place, developers won't need to worry much about people using slow and low-quality microSD cards, which can cause lag issues and slow loading times in-game. This can either be a good thing or a bad thing, and that truly depends on the consumers. Regular microSD cards can still be used, though not for storing games, but rather for screenshots and screen recordings. And I've read somewhere that due to this standard in place, the demand for microSD Express cards skyrocketed to the point where it's sold out in Japan alone. For me, well, I'm glad Nintendo went through this route so that they won't have to receive complaints about slow load times. But I am quite disappointed that they didn't use NVMe SSD drives. And while they can argue that's to save space on the compact hardware, people will say the Steam Deck can use SSD expansions. Ah, magnets. The Joy-Con 2 will have magnets. And seeing it connecting, ooh, so satisfying. And it will have a larger joystick, which is good because I don't like the travel distance of the regular Joy-Con on the Switch 1. It doesn't use Hall effect though, which can be a trade-off, but with the increased size, drifting issues may occur less. Could have been better though if they used Hall effect. It can also be used as a mouse, which, okay, I'll admit, may be a useless gimmick, but for shooting games like Doom, Metroid, or even Splatoon, it can be a massive turn in terms of experience on a gaming console. Very excited for the potential mouse controls on Splatoon. Oh, and the C button. Wow, I will bet my balls if people will be using this much. The display of the Switch 2 will feature an IPS LCD display. That can output 1080p at 120Hz with HDR and variable refresh rate. Now, you might be thinking, yuck, an IPS display in the big 2025? Okay, big boy, let me tell you something. Most people won't give two shits about it. Yeah, sure, IPS LCD may not have the inky blacks and the contrast ratio of an OLED, but have you seen what a good IPS display looks like? Take for example, for you fortunate enough to own a MacBook, take a look at it. It's good enough, right? No? Then that means you don't have a sense of gratitude. You can probably expect the display of the Switch 2 to be good enough. When I took a gander at videos of the Nintendo Switch 2 experience on YouTube, the display panel of the Switch 2 looks pretty black, and that alone made me sigh in relief that the display quality might actually be good. It also has HDR. With HDR, bright parts will appear more brighter and darker parts will appear darker. And with a wider 10-bit color gamut, you'll get richer colors. Not to mention 1080p and 120Hz. Oh, what's that? It doesn't have an internal 4K display? My goodness, what more do you want? 1080p on an 8-inch display is enough. It's all about the PPI, or pixels per inch. Packing 2 million pixels in an 8-inch footprint will be enough that you won't notice the individual pixels. So, it's already high quality enough. 4K is too much. And as a matter of fact, if it's already outputting 4K portably in the first place, the battery life would probably be worse. And not to mention, 120Hz also makes it even better, because everything will be so buttery smooth, you won't even care about resolution. You need to see it in person for you to experience 120Hz. And with variable refresh rate, battery life is also a significant improvement, since the display will only need to refresh based on the amount of FPS it's outputting. This can reduce judder, making motion-heavy content look smooth and consistent, and at the same time, reduce the display's power consumption when it's displaying a static content, like the home menu. The refresh rate range is still a mystery, so we'll need to wait for that to be revealed. So, I think Nintendo did a great job in choosing the display specs. Hell, I wouldn't even care if the resolution is 720p. I'd take the 120Hz display any day. If the price will decrease, that is. And the dock can output 4K 60Hz and 120Hz at lower resolutions with HDR support over HDMI. Battery-wise, Nintendo claimed it will have an up to 2 to 6.5 hours of gameplay time, which is average at best. My Switch 1 can barely survive more than 3 hours of gameplay, so I can't really judge here. So in conclusion, hardware-wise, Nintendo truly tried to reach with the current standards, with improved performance, faster storage, 4K, and HDR. Not to mention magnets and a 120Hz display. For $450 though, man, I was expecting $400 or $429. But after some thoughts, with the amount of fluff that Nintendo has given on the hardware department, I think the price is fully justified because obviously they don't want to take big losses on the hardware and it's not a significant jump over the previous Nintendo Switch. But now, let's talk about the software. So within the April Nintendo Direct, one of the first few things that Nintendo showcased was the game chat feature, which apparently can be launched if you press the C button on the new Joy-Con. It's really funny seeing Nintendo wanting to make a really mediocre Discord clone. Like I said, I really don't think many people will be using this, especially since you need an active Nintendo Switch Online subscription just to merely access it, kinda like the voice chat feature on the Nintendo Switch Online app for iOS and Android. The majority will probably just opt to use any regular free voice chat app like Discord. However, for the tiny percentile of people who will actually be using this, good for you! Now, let's take a look at the screen share feature, shall we? Oh wow, oh my god. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, we can admit that the screen sharing feature looks atrocious, but I think I can formulate a really good reason as to why they chose to do this. Okay, so when they came up with this feature, they obviously want for as many people as possible to use it, right? What's the first thing to optimize? That's right, call connectivity! Call connection stability is one of the important aspects of voice chatting, so when screen sharing on a call, you will need enough bandwidth to ensure a stable connection, and since internet speeds vary between households and across countries, you wouldn't know the exact figures. Look at that, Indonesia sitting at 121st place with an average internet speed of 33 megabits per second. I will forever stay and stand proud to this stupid little country. Only if it doesn't have such shit of a presidency. So Nintendo going on the safe route of throttling down the streaming quality intentionally is actually a good thing, so the call would be stable without consuming too much bandwidth and everyone will have an equal streaming quality. And with this reduced streaming quality, the resources needed to screen share wouldn't be as much, potentially having no impact on game performance. And sure, you have Discord, which can screen share at an unnecessarily high resolution of 1440p 60 FPS, if you pay them that is. You can argue with that, but you need to keep in mind that Discord is an app designed for desktop use, and when screen sharing, the app expects that the hardware and internet speed you have is capable to stream at that high resolution, if you pay them that is, and it will fully utilize the hardware's media engine to stream, with optimizations truly depending on the graphics drivers, aka Discord doesn't care about resource efficiency. With Nintendo's Game Chat screen share, they set a limit on how it screen shares, and with this in place, everyone will have an equal streaming quality. So it's no me having a higher quality screen share than you, and they probably designed the screen share feature to be as resource efficient as possible, so game performance and processor usage will have minimal impact. So yeah, Game Chat, it's an okay feature. They said that it'll be free up until 2026, so that's nice. I couldn't give a damn about the screen share quality though, because I don't think I'll be using this that much. But we can't exactly tell the actual quality, because with their record-breaking history of creating the worst online gaming experience possible, I don't have high hopes that this feature will be praised. Mario Kart World! It happened. 24-player, fully open world, an actually engaging single-player campaign, a f***ing playable cow. Holy shit! This might actually be the best Mario Kart of all time! Yes, finally! A new entry to the Mario Kart series. And wow, the UI does not feel like Mario Kart at all. I don't know how to describe this, but this UI feels like a cheap shovelware racing game. I don't know, like fucking Raced with Ryan. But who the hell cares? You can play as a cow! I had a look at the Treehouse and Mario Kart Directs, and I can say that I am extremely excited for the new Mario Kart. Everything about this game is just a breath of fresh air. Every character feels more alive, animated, and very cute. But the lack of crossover characters like what Mario Kart 8 did with Animal Crossing, Zelda, and Splatoon might have pushed me back from buying this game, but you know, I could always opt for Yoshi, as that's my go-to character aside from Villager. I've also had some chat with an online buddy of mine, and after some thoughts, maybe the design choice isn't that bad after all. This might be the best Mario Kart of all time. Donkey Kong Bonanza. I have some thoughts about this. Now, I have never played Super Mario Odyssey or any 3D Mario game in general. Some people said that this game is a reminiscent of Mario Odyssey, and it's speculated that the team who made Mario Odyssey developed the game at some point, though that is yet to be confirmed. I haven't seen the Treehouse videos for this game, but from the trailer alone it looked like a really fun game. You can pretty much dig and destroy nearly everything in the world in search for them lovely bananas. And it's pretty cool that Donkey Kong finally got a brand new installment after 6 years or so. We've also got some Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, like a remastered Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which, oh my god, has a certain feeling that I cannot describe. It looks like a completely new game. It's like breathing in 4K that you'll finally be able to run these games at 60 FPS, and at the same time with HDR support. Everything from the colors to the smooth animations, it just makes me want to play it on the Switch 2. For the record, the only Zelda game that I have ever played and enjoyed is the Wind Waker, and I'm still in the process of finishing it, which, by the way, you can watch it live on this channel. There's also a new Kirby and the Forgotten Land DLC, which I might look more into it later, a new Metroid Prime, just lots of new Nintendo stuff lately. We also get Dragon Drive, which, yes, is indeed Rocket League but basketball, and the characters are disabled. I'm not trying to make fun of disabled people, no, not at all. I actually feel nice about this because it shows that people with a disability can do amazing things, and I feel good that it may make disabled people feel represented with this game. I find it quite funny though that there are some reports where Nintendo told people they can't say that the characters are riding wheelchairs and instead they should just refer that they're riding vehicles. Really weird. And game people on the Nintendo Switch Online, with a controller announced. Hopefully those triggers are analog. We got Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX, which, I'll admit, looked insanely cool because everything just looks so metal as fuck. The Switch Online Wind Waker, though, kinda ruined my hope for a Wind Waker 4K port for the Switch 2, because while the GameCube Wind Waker is indeed just your standard Wind Waker, there's just something about the HD port that's better, either the better sounding instruments for the music sequence or the improved visuals, and I really want to see them running in 4K and HDR on the Switch 2, because I think the Wind Waker is just screaming to be made for it. But of course, since the original engine is made for PowerPC, porting them to ARM might be a huge task, and based from reports, they said that a Wind Waker 4K port for the Switch 2 is quote-unquote on the table. And about Switch 2 game cards, personally I don't really worry about them that much. Games can be stored in here at a significantly higher capacity with faster speeds, and there's another type of game card called game key cards, which, okay, is a little dystopian. How this works is basically a code for downloading the game is stored within the cartridge and you'll need to insert it whenever you want to play it. The good part about this is that when you want to sell the game to someone else, they can still use the cartridge like normal without being tied to a specific console, based from where I have read. I feel like this is a good thing, however, because it's quite annoying that when you buy a game with this kind of cartridge, when you pop that sucker into your console, you still need to download the game from the internet just to play it. And at the same time, the bad thing about this is that, for example, if the key inside the cartridge is valid, but the game got removed from the store, kinda like the Concord situation, wouldn't that be questionable? But I like to think that this game keycard thing will be only more prevalent on third-party games, because obviously they want to maximize profits after paying Nintendo to publish their games on the Switch 2. And also, paying more for a flash storage included on the cartridge would put more cost to them, so they'd simply opt for the game keycard. I'll admit, this is lazy, but in the end, corporations will be corporations. Maximize profits without thinking about the end consumer. I'm still quite optimistic that first-party Nintendo games will be using game cards with flash storage in them, so you would only need to download the update data when necessary. And Switch games will be backwards compatible. But their approach for this is, in my opinion, quite interesting, and I think it's worth digging into. So back then, backwards compatibility on Nintendo consoles has always been about including hardware that is backwards compatible. For example, the 3DS has DS hardware, and DS has the GBA hardware, making DS games and Game Boy Advance games natively compatible on the 3DS. The Wii U has the CPU and GPU architecture and instruction sets similar to the Wii, making Wii games natively compatible on the Wii U. For the Switch and the Switch 2, on the other hand, while the CPU uses the same ARM v8 architecture, the GPU is a completely different hardware, with different instruction sets and feature sets. This leads to GPU-specific features on the Nintendo Switch 1 being natively incompatible when run on the Switch 2. So what Nintendo did is, by implementing a translation layer that converts Maxwell-specific GPU instructions to a code where Ampere understands. This is just a bare-bones explanation, and I'm no expert in this field, and of course, inaccuracy in my explanation will be present, so I highly recommend looking at other creators like Modern Vintage Gamer, where he explains it better than I did. Alright, after all that kerfuffle, time to look at the game prices. Oh my Jesus! $80 for Mario Kart? $70 for Donkey Kong? $10 for a f***ing tech demo? What is this? They're just spewing out arbitrary numbers and thinking it's justified. I can't even defend this shit! Apparently, the president of Nintendo of America said that they carefully observe the depth of the gameplay and take a look at the development process. Bitch, you have fucking Breath of the Wild being vastly open world, that's $60. Smash Ultimate being endlessly replayable with a single player campaign that, while not the best, still is a single player experience, that's $60. Mario Odyssey, $60. I couldn't even express my sadness when I saw that Mario Kart World would be $80. I don't even know what aspect makes the price justifiable. Well, unless if they're bringing new content and crossover characters without any additional paid DLC, there is no way in hell makes this game $80. For Donkey Kong, well, I mean, you have Tears of the Kingdom being $70, so I can still let this slide. But $80 for Mario Kart? Come on, man. These games will never even receive a discount. I'm not trying to teach you about economics or fucking inflation or anything here. I'm just speaking this from the heart of someone who doesn't have a consistent income. I can't believe this is the current direction where the video game industry is heading. In the end though, when I have enough money, I'll buy it eventually, just not at launch. And while I do understand that everything in this world is going to shit and prices and living costs and everywhere are rising, there is a moment where the video game industry will also need to follow suit, unfortunately, where demand and development costs are consistently rising. So, with the increased game price, companies that are making these games will be well paid, where profits and employee wage will be equal. This is only valid for Nintendo and maybe a couple other game companies, though I can't say the same for the other game companies, if you know what I'm saying. But that's the thing though, with $70 and $80 being the new standards, these other game companies will have an excuse to follow and possibly continue to torture their workers and developers and maximize profits just for the CEO. Wow, what a dystopian world we live in where the entertainment industry torture and lay off their workers. Quite ironic, huh? I thought entertainment means providing enjoyment, where artists and developers express their ideas for others to enjoy. Instead, these companies provide slop and sadness, paying the workers low or even laying them off, who bring great new ideas with these workers having no clear direction where to go next. Everything is just sad at this point. So yeah, mixed thoughts about the Switch 2. The hardware? Yeah. The software? Not really. I will probably buy it at some point. But again, I don't really have a stable and consistent income, so maybe not at launch. But if they make a Wind Waker 4K, that's all I can say.